The following program is a Sports Night radio production.
Back on Sports Night Radio, the Chicago Blackhawks have made their return to the NHL playoffs. And what we think about the Chicago Blackhawks on this show is this. We don't think much of the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah, okay.
I'll kill you next time.
That's right. You wouldn't know
The
anything about
Vancouver
their team.
Canucks, Canada's only team in the second round of the NHL playoffs, are the only hope. The hope of the Great White North. Hope of the Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Hope. The Great White Hope. The Vancouver Canucks. Let's talk about the second round of the NHL playoffs. Vancouver Canucks against
The Hawks.
the Chicago
Go, Hawks,
Blackhawks.
go.
Right now the series is tied at 1-1. Let's talk about the key points of the series. Who's going to win? Who's not going to win? Who's going to move on? And why are they going to move on? Start off with you, the big Chicago Blackhawks fan over here, also suffering from postpartum depression and a severe case of hepatitis, as you said.
Well, it's funny. All I've heard up until now is that Happy Bullen hasn't beaten Vancouver for the last 13 games, and Vancouver outmuscled them during the regular season, and Vancouver this and Vancouver that. Well, I don't know if you guys saw the first two games. They're lucky that Vancouver even won the first one. Because the one thing, you know what, and everybody says it's Vancouver's the last Canadian team left. It doesn't matter. Once you guys start looking at the rosters of these teams, go ahead, let Vancouver win it so that they can bring it back to Sweden and stuff. Half their team is like non-Canadian. So how do you really figure that that's the last Canadian team? What, you think if Vancouver wins it, that's for all Canada? Come on. Anyways, let's talk about the series and all that, right?
Okay, so you're saying Vancouver is not a Canadian team?
No, I didn't say that.
Well, no, you're saying you said before the Montreal Canadiens aren't going to be in Montreal.
I don't like this thing that now that our
the
team,
Vancouver is not a Canadian team.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, let's go for Vancouver now because we can keep it in Canada and all that. That's fine. But what I'm saying is when they win the cup...
Let me ask you a question. When is the last time that the Stanley Cup has come back to Canada? 1993. Which team brought that cup back to Canada?
Ed?
Well, you know, it was the Canadians.
It was the Montreal Canadiens, the Montreal Canadiens.
Okay, that's great.
When's the last time the Chicago Blackhawks won anything?
I'm just saying, though.
61.
Exactly.
So what, Ed? I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying everybody...
20 years after you were born.
Fine. You know what? We'll talk about the series then.
Okay, let's talk about the series. It's the key to success. Let's talk about Roberto Luongo. Now, this is a battle of the goaltenders.
It is.
It is a battle of the goaltenders.
I agree.
Who do you give now? You got to be. You can't have any loyalty to one team or another. Who do you give?
Let's get it straight. That I'm a Chicago Blackhawks fan. But
we understand
I'm a
that.
hockey fan first of all.
Hockey fan
and if
first
there's
of all.
something to admit, there's
Who do you give the advantage to? Chicago or Vancouver in terms of goaltending?
In the goaltending, you know what? Everybody favors Luongo because he's younger and all that. But you know what? He didn't win a Stanley Cup. Happy Bullen did. So you got to almost even it out there. You know what? Like I said, from day one, Happy Bullen was playing with that look in his eye that I've seen him when he won with Tampa Bay. Luongo, he's a great goalie. But he's never won anything before. No, I'm sorry. You know what? I'd really call it even. I'd call it even.
Do you think Roberto Luongo is the type of goalie who gets blown out in the second game, who comes back stronger, because that's the type of goalie he is, and it's proven in the past where he gets played and then all of a sudden he will come back. I'm going to put this one to you, Ed. And now he comes back, they lose 6-3 in game 2. He is the type of world-class goalie that will come back, like a Martin Brodeur that will come back the third game and say, you know what, this is not going to happen again.
Well, goaltending is going to win the series. And if Roberto gets hot, that'll be the end of Chicago.
Well, we can say that about any
goalie. I think it's a 7-game series. Myself,
I think so
it's
too.
going 7 games.
Okay, I think the Hawks can win in 6. I know you guys are all against it. Everybody's for Vancouver, and I'm not saying it because I'm a Hawks fan. The one thing people got to remember about the Hawks this year, everybody's got them thinking that they're 2 or 3 years down the line because they're young. That's great, but you know what? You might want to tell the Hawks that because they don't believe that. They think they can win it this year. Pick up a dictionary and look under the word resilient because that is what the Hawks are. I said that from day one. Look at the first 2 games. What do you want to spot Vancouver now in Chicago? Maybe 5 goals and we'll win 6-5? That's what's going to do it at the end. I say Chicago in 6. If Luongo can steal a couple of games, maybe in 7 Chicago.
Let's talk about Matt Sundin. Is he producing the way that the people in Vancouver and the fans of Vancouver want Matt Sundin to produce? Because there's been a lot of questions that the second line scoring, secondary scoring in Vancouver has not been there. Now, Matt Sundin produced 1 point, I believe, in the game. Game number 1, which they won, but it hasn't really shown up for this series. A lot of people are saying, will this be a huge problem for Vancouver?
Well, actually, I got to say something funny to Matt Sundin. Like I just saw him on TV the other day. Is it me, or if you put a couple of fangs on that guy, he looks like Nosferatu the vampire? Like, who is this guy all of a sudden? I know it has nothing to do with hockey. I just wanted to mention that now. I don't remember him. I remember him playing a lot better with the Leafs. The Mets that I'm seeing now, I don't like what I see. For $5 million and all that, I thought he'd be a lot better in the playoffs. The secondary scoring that they need, I don't think it's going to come from him. It should probably come from the young guys like Alexander Burrows and Yannick Hansen if they put him in, and some of the other guys. But to me, I don't think he's worth the money. What do you think?
It does give Vancouver a second line, though, and it takes some of the pressure off the Sedin twins to have Mats out there. And Mats is...
But he hasn't really produced, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, that may be in one sense in the goals, but the number one line is the Sedin line, so he's not going to get the same minutes as he did in Toronto. And if he can take some pressure off the Sedin line, then great. They have to... Matt Sundin can put that puck in the net just the same as any of the other players can. And given a short series, he can raise his level of his game.
If he gets the game up there, he could be the difference maker. Now, the one thing that I want to talk about is the unexpected surprise of Kyle Wellwood. This guy is playing like he is Wayne Gretzky out there, setting up plays, involved in everything, getting hit, losing teeth, stitches. I gotta say, this guy didn't work out in Toronto, but I can just imagine him on a team like the Chicago Blackhawks.
No, we don't. No, thank you. We don't want many 12-year-old players on our team.
You already have a bunch of 14-year-old players on your team.
Well, they're a lot better than the 12-year-old. Cal Wellwood, what are you talking about? He had one game. And like I said, it wasn't him.
He's a grinder.
What are you talking about? He looked good because they had the power play on for like the first two periods. Of course, he's going to look good.
Vancouver Canucks fans, I got to say this. In the first round, I predicted that Chicago would beat Calgary. And Marciello and I agreed on something other than Playboy. So finally, we agreed to that. In the second round, I'm predicting that the Vancouver Canucks will win in 6 games.
If that isn't the curse for you, Vancouver, I don't know what will be. So look at Chicago's got it won.
No, Vancouver will take the series. Ed, who do you pick?
I picked Vancouver to win the series. I think it's probably a 7-game series myself. And if Chicago were to upset them, I think it'd happen in 6. I feel Vancouver's going to win this series.
Sexy Andy has just made his pick over here.
Just keep in mind, folks, that Montreal fans only watch Montreal games, so they really don't know who's on Vancouver.
What are you talking
and who's on
about?
Chicago.
Montreal fans
so if you want to
are
listen to their
passionate
predictions,
about
by all
hockey.
means.
No, we're passionate about hockey.
You're not. You even said, as soon as Montreal's out, what you still watching hockey?
Okay.
I'm watching hockey.
Oh, come on.
At least we air our games on television. We don't have to wait 5 years for that to start happening again.
Let me ask you this then. Why wouldn't Chicago win it in 7? Why not?
Because I just think that the inexperience lies within Chicago.
You might want to send them a memo because they don't know that.
It doesn't matter. It will show up. That's what inexperience does. It shows up in Game 6.
You might want to tell Calgary about that because it showed up, but they still beat them.
Pittsburgh last year, they were a young team. They got to the finals. It's not to say that Chicago couldn't get to the finals. But
right.
It may take another season before.
No, you see, that's where everybody's problem is. Everybody thinks the Hawks are 2 or 3 years away. No, Happy Bullen, he's 36, 37 years old. He's not going to wait till then. He probably won't even be with them anymore. And Marty Havlat, is he going to be signed with them or not? No, they want to win now. And the players don't want to win 2-3 years. They want to win now.
Okay, we got to take...
Sorry, about Cal Wellwood, please, Chicago. When you're in there, Bufflin, Brower, all you guys, he's like a 12-year-old little punk. Crush him.
Someone needs a muffle on this guy. We got to take... Freddie Mac is selling this. We have to take a break. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the other key matches going on. We're going to talk about Pittsburgh, Washington. We're also going to talk about Detroit versus...
Anaheim.
Yes, and it's a great series, and we're going to talk more about this.
I think it's 2-2 right now.
Oh, we'll talk more about that. We'll be back in a couple seconds on Sports Night Radio.